Hi out there in the YouTube. This is number 27 of the Nakshatra series. We are going to be going into Revati, which is the final of all of the nakshatras. It is the culmination. It is the end of this series. It is also the end of the nakshatras. And I also want to note here that there is heavy karmic dues or relations between any of the fire and the water cusp signs. Now, because this is the final nakshatra, going into the next one will be a number 1, which is Ashwini in Aries, which is fire. So we're at the cusp sign. There's only 3 cusp signs in the whole nakshatra, and we're at one of those cusp signs. And it's also not only a cusp, but a finality of this series. And with that, I want you to remember the karmic dues and all that. So the closer towards the end of this nakshatra that you get, or the closer that you get to Ashwini, then the harder you might feel karmic dues. And this can be a plethora, a barrage of different things, so I'm not going to get into that. But what do we want to know about Pisces? Well, Pisces is a water sign, so this is like heavily emotional. Everyone feels emotion, but this sign more so. And it is ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter being like the god of luck, prosperity, wealth, abundance, growth, all of that fun stuff. But at the same time, kind of like bit of like being juvenile, like a child. But in this sign, it has reached maturity, so it doesn't really have. It might have a little bit of that Jupiterian humor, but for the most part, it's a little bit calmed down. And they're also mutable, which means that highly adapt to be able to change, chameleon-like Pisces is. Like they tend, like for all of the nakshatras that fall in Pisces, they're very good at taking on their surroundings. But this sign, the very most, because the previous 2 were human when it came to their class, not their class, but their nature. Well, this one's nature is godlike, or diva, so it's going to be drawn towards the good and the spirit. And so I'll start reading some of the details. Its class is Shudra, or servant. This is because they will help anyone, even their enemies, just because they want to maintain harmony and balance. So, much more peaceful sign than the previous 2. Like, this is more of like the priest of the priests, like, because it's in Pisces, so it'll have that kind of Piscean energy, obviously, because it's in that. But more so, like, this is actually like kind of Pisces of the Pisces. Like, it still has a bit of that dualistic nature where there's the bad side. But, being diva, it's going to be drawn to the good. Hence its symbol being the fish, which symbolizes that, like the fish is always moving. Even in still waters, it's always moving. And this symbolizes that it's moving towards source. And it's one of the most spiritual of the nakshatras. So, it has that benevolent presence. So, yes, I mentioned that its nature is diva, or godlike. Its ruler is Mercury. Now, being ruled by Mercury, Mercury is like the bridge between the other realms and this world. Hence the constant evolution and growth. It represents language and communications. And it's a very spiritual sign because it represents, Mercury. It's the god, the messenger of the gods. And everyone has a Mercury placement. And so would someone who has this sign as their moon. Now, if you had, depending on your chart, obviously this is going to make a huge difference where it is placed. But if you have this sign, Revati, as your moon sign, then it would be very important for you to look where your Mercury is placed in your natal chart, or your mizal. So, highly would recommend to do that. Its symbol, as I mentioned, is a fish in water, which represents the movement of the soul and travel towards the creator, or the source. So, very benefic influences, and very spiritual sign of all of the zodiac, or nakshatras. It is the most spiritual. So, remember, its element is ether. So in classical zodiac astrology, we have earth, air, fire, water. But in Vedic astrology, with the 27 nakshatras, we also have ether included as an additional element. Now, ether represents, even in terms of scientific, like Tesla and like the ether, if you do scientific research, it represents the spaces between the atoms, or the unseen, the metaphysical, the spiritual. So ghosts, UFOs, telepathy, all of the stuff that seems to like occur, but there isn't a tangible physical substance to it, that is ether. And ether is compatible with almost everybody. Well, not almost, it's compatible with everybody, because it flows in between the spaces, between whatever they are. So if they're with an earth person, well, they can flow between the crystals. If they're with air, they can flow between the communicational abilities of that air. And especially, like, etc. But especially when we look at, because we're in Piscean energy, it's like the chameleon. So it has a very, very strong influence on this, being able to get along with everybody. Its animal is a female elephant. Now, there's lots of reasons behind this. Elephants are very docile, unless provoked and poked and poked and poked. They're normally very peaceful, and they'll eat leaves off the trees. They prefer ground level as opposed to mountains. They don't like to climb or have heavy change. They like the static, the neutral, the zen, the spiritual, and peaceful. You know, like a very hot sunny day, just flapping their ears, eating some leaves on some flat ground. Like, so, that, and the animal gives significance towards compatibility when it comes towards like sexual compatibility between partners. So you can look up what other nakshatras have elephant as their animal sign, and that will show you physical compatibility. Doesn't necessarily mean everything goes perfect, but at least as a summary of physicality, they show it in an animal. That way, it's a little easier to understand. So, but even like any sign can be compatible with any sign. It just takes love, compassion, and understanding. So, just to note that. Myths associated with this are that its name translates to wealthy or to transcend. It's ruled by two main deities, Pushan, which is a solar deity. It shines light on the dark paths, but is much kinder than normal sun god. It will give wealth, prosperity, and completion. And Vishnu, the preserver of the Trinity at the time of the dissolution. Now, there's cardinal fixed mutable. This lies in mutable, which is the maintenance. So there's like creation, cardinal, the initiation energy, and then there's fixed, which is destruction and harshness, and being like stubborn. And then there is maintenance, which is taking what you got before and maintaining it and growing on to the next phase, which is, you know, cardinal fixed mutable, cardinal fixed mutable, cardinal fixed mutable. That's what it is in the 12 zodiacs. And this sign has a heavy understanding of that with Vishnu, because of its rulership here. It understands the cycles of time that are forever repeating and continuing. The main ideas associated with this nakshatra is shepherd, foster parent, incubation, protector and nurturer of others on their journey, difficulty with own children, diseases in childhood. They also progress in leaps and bounds. So even though it has like the elephant as its animal, you know, once in a while there's like a stampede, like that, stampede. Well, this nakshatra also applies in that way, where in their life they will progress in leaps and bounds. Even though most of the time they prefer it to be static and neutral and peaceful and zen. And that's true for everybody, that like we learn the most through trials and tribulations and the difficulties. But this sign, it applies in this manner, like an elephant. Traits. It is the most spiritual of all of the nakshatras. Shows huge amounts of wealth, and this can be due to Jupiter, as in Pisces, with Mercury ruling for the Revati element. When we combine these, well, you have luck and prosperity, and then you have the bridge between the unseen and the seen. So when you combine those, well, it gives wealth and prosperity. They are very optimistic and believe in God. They are very pleasing, benevolent in nature, and the most fortunate of all the nakshatras. They believe in themselves, and they have their own spiritual, individual, unique beliefs that they hold to themselves. They are the eternal optimist. They believe in themselves and feel that they can do anything. They completely rely on their belief system rather than taking effort. So they can be a little kind of like the elephant when it's like sedentary and like just wanting like a static neutral plane. They might be like not apt to make change so much, a little bit too shy, a little bit too reserved, too kind to make change unless, provoked like an elephant. Saturn can help them make good goals or work come easily. So you'd want to look at your Saturn placement for this. They're daydreamers. Well, that's Pisces, like Pisces is the daydreamer, and that's because Jupiter. They're the most tender and sensitive of all of the nakshatras, so they have a tendency to get hurt easily. But because of their ability of being the eternal optimist, they will remain unflustered, even in the face of big setbacks. So they're undaunted. They will continue their course like an elephant, unstoppable, largest land animal pretty much. So, that's why it's given this symbology. Of all of the signs, they have the strongest ability to create illusion. Now, what it means by creating illusion and all that illusionary magical stuff, it means the world of the Maya, which means in Vedic astrology, illusion. And this symbolizes our world because it's the fabric and creation of all these different fibers of being that are coming together. And this sign understands that very well due to its chameleon nature, because whenever it meets someone, it takes on their nature, kind of like Mystique from X-Men, and never forgets that, ever, wherever they come into contact, and they learn and grow through their trials and tribulations. They represent refinement and sophistication. They want civil, well-mannered environments. They are born into good families and have good development. They know how to make friends. They're very tender, but get easily hurt. They have worries, but are more relaxed and patient, and do not get overwhelmed. They aren't anxious. So they have that mellow environment about them. You don't feel pressured when you're around them. It's just kind of easygoing, relaxed nature. They speak from their mind because of the Mercury abilities and have huge speech. So they can be very, very talkative. And depending on who they're with, talkative in different ways. They're very tricky and clever, and this comes from Mercury. Things can seem rehearsed, but they are truly from their mind. It's just that they know the thing so well that it just comes to them by nature, and they're just like, well, that's just how it is, so why would you have to think about it beforehand? It's just flowing from the other side, the unseen realm, to this side, which is the one that we can see. And our brains are like a freaking supercomputer. They're pretty fast. You know what I mean? Gets the gears going. Because they have Mercury. But this can be a little bit misdirected sometimes. We also want to remember that Mercury's like Virgo and like Gemini. So a lot of different routes. And this sign needs to maintain focus. Because much like a fish swimming in water, you don't just want to dart here and dart there and dart there. if you want to accomplish a goal, like, spawning or whatever, you gotta stay true to the course and stick to it. And that's the only way you're going to accomplish things in the physical world of the Maya. So, remember that. They accept situations as they can sense people around them and see the truth. So, like the chameleon nature. Put them in any kind of fish tank and they'll adapt and change. They aren't emotional fools. So even though this sign is very emotional in nature, they aren't fools for love. Like, they're very understanding of the depths and nature of this cycle in the world of love and rebirth and transformation. They see it around them all the time. And they're quite aware, but kind of zen about it. Like, they don't let it bother them. They're daydreamers, but they can also transform their dreams into reality. It deals with infinity of time and space, creation, destruction, maintenance, or cardinal, fixed, mutable, as the zodiacs go. They're very, very hard to pin down, because new light is always shining on their horizons. So due to that, like, ever-changing, ever-flowing nature, they always see new things. They always progress. They always evolve. And if you don't evolve along with them, then you kind of might get lost in the dust. Like, and they don't mean to be like, they're just like, oh, we'll see you in the next lifetime. Like, they're very calm about it. Like, they understand all the other nakshatras better than any of the other nakshatras have the ability to. Like, were the previous two signs, but they are human in nature. So that means that they're going to be, like, neutral. Well, this sign is benefic, so being diva, or godlike. So it will have the ability to connect to source. And with that, it kind of, like, can undo some of the filters of the world. So whenever they come into contact, they kind of absorb the energy of that person and use that to create life lessons for themselves and evolve themselves for moksha, or spiritual growth, in this lifetime. The last 2/3 should be avoided for beginnings of all kinds. Not good for overcoming difficulties, calamities, or negative things, like sharp activities, like surgery, or strenuous activities, like mountain climbing. So that's because Jupiter, I guess, a bit, and because it's the final sign, they might just be like, oh, just let the current carry me. I trust in God and believe in all that, so just let the current carry me. I don't want to have to do anything. And Jupiter, just like being juvenile and happy-go-lucky, like, why? You know what I mean? Like, it might have a little bit of that lackadaisical nature, or being a little bit, lazy. And yes, their physical appearance, they're going to have a glow on their face. They'll be very beautiful, handsome. And it also relates to the feet, ankles, and the groin. Even in the nakshatra books, it doesn't really explain the groin area. Like, this sign is associated with the feet, or the lower area, or the bottom-most of the human body, because it goes from Aries all the way to Pisces. Like, any good astrologer, or even a basic astrologer, should know that. So, yeah, I hope that this has given you good understanding of either yourself, or your partner, or just friends. And, yeah, remember that this is mainly for your moon sign. But if you have other sign placements here, it can apply, but in different ways. And you would have to remember that since the moon is your, like, emotional response, depending on what other planets you have placed here, they will apply in different ways. But, and thank you for joining me in this Nakshatra series. It's been fun, and I hope you've learned as much as I have. So, bye.